Welcome to the deep dive. So here's the plan today. We've got the stack of sources covering all sorts of online buzz, right?
Right. Everything from AI, markets, space, online culture, too.
Exactly. And our mission basically is to unpack the important bits, the insights hidden inside all that chatter.
Consider it your shortcut.
Yeah.
We're trying to figure out what's trending and, why it actually matters.
Yeah.
Using the stuff you shared with us.
Perfect. Think of us as guides, trying to connect the dots for you.
Sounds good.
Okay, so speaking of things moving fast, let's jump straight into the AI and tech frontier. There were some pretty significant updates flagged in the source material we looked at.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's maybe start with ChatGPT. The sources had those June 13th update notes shared by @BitToBore91.
Right. What were the main takeaways from that update?
Okay, so key things were upgraded search. They're aiming for it to be more comprehensive, more up-to-date.
Makes sense.
They also mentioned better instruction following. And the AI is apparently now doing multiple searches automatically if you ask it something complex.
Oh, interesting. Like figuring out it needs more info itself.
Sort of, yeah. And the other big one, image search capability.
Image search. Okay, that feels like a pretty big deal, adding that in.
It really is. And the context we got from the sources suggests it uses third-party providers for this.
Okay.
Now, think about this. Statista said Google was doing, 1.5 billion image searches a month back in 2023.
Wow. Billion.
Yeah. So if ChatGPT starts pulling even a fraction of that, well, that could shift things online, potentially away from Google search for images.
That's a huge potential shift. And the underlying AI model, was that updated too?
It was. They're using a fine-tuned GPT-4o model.
Yeah.
And there was context from a 2024 study in Nature Machine Intelligence.
Okay.
It suggested that this kind of training, using synthetic data like they seem to be doing, it could improve reasoning on complex stuff by maybe 15%.
15%. So noticeably smarter, potentially?
Measurably, yeah. But there's often a trade-off, right?
Mm-hmm.
The sources mentioned a potential downside.
Ah, yes. Latency, was it? Wronger response times?
Exactly. It's apparently being worked on, but this more complex chain of thought reasoning, while it boosts accuracy, well, it takes longer.
How much longer?
A 2023 paper mentioned in the context that it could add up to 30 seconds sometimes.
30 seconds is quite a wait if you're used to instant answers.
It is. So it's that classic tech balancing act.
Yeah.
Accuracy versus speed. The real insight, I think, is that pushing AI always seems to uncover new hurdles you need to fix. Iteration, iteration.
Optimize one thing, strain another.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay, so moving from ChatGPT, the sources also flagged a breakthrough from Tencent. This was from @Rowanshom.
Yeah, this one's pretty interesting. Tencent's AI model, it's called Hunyuan 3D 2.0.
And what's special about it?
The claim, based on Reuters reporting cited in the sources, is that it generates cinematic quality 3D assets.
Cinematic quality. Okay, and fast.
That's the kicker. Under 30 seconds, reportedly.
Wow, under 30 seconds for high-quality 3D? That is genuinely quick for that kind of output.
It really is. And if you zoom out, look at the bigger picture.
Yeah.
It really highlights China's huge long-term investment in AI. Going way back to that 2006 national plan, stuff like this puts Tencent right up there globally in creative AI.
But there was a catch, or maybe some interesting timing mentioned, something about regulations.
Precisely. The source context pointed out that this news dropped just after a Guardian report, June 9th, about some Chinese AI tools being suspended, something about preventing exam cheating.
Okay. So innovation pushing forward, but also controls tightening.
Exactly. It highlights that tension, between pushing innovation hard and dealing with the potential downsides or misuse. It's a balancing act everyone in AI is facing.
A constant negotiation, for sure. Okay, let's switch gears to another big tech name from the sources, Tesla. Their official account @Tesla posted some updates.
Yeah, they were talking about expanding FSD supervised.
Yeah.
The claim is the cars can drive themselves pretty much anywhere it's available now, not just, highways.
Right. That sounds like a major step towards, full self-driving. But the data, is it actually there yet?
Well, this is where the source context is really key. Tesla's own 2024 data, it does show a 30% drop in human interventions per mile. That's progress, definitely.
Okay, 30% reduction is good.
But, and this is important, NHTSA data from 2023, also in the sources, still showed it needs human oversight, like 1.5 interventions per 1,000 miles on average.
So better, but still needs a driver paying attention, not fully autonomous.
Exactly. The capability is growing, no doubt. But the data confirms you need that human supervision. It highlights that gap, between really advanced driver assist and true unsupervised autonomy.
That intervention number really clarifies things. What about the other claims in their post?
Yeah.
Running costs, safety.
They mentioned those too.
Sure.
For costs, the context had a 2023 wet car study from the UK. It suggested Model S cost maybe £1.04 per mile for electricity there,
Compared to?
compared to like Plan 12 for petrol luxury EVs. So on paper, much cheaper to run.
But there was a caveat.
Yeah, the source wisely added, rising electricity prices or battery degrading over time. That could shrink the gap.
Right.
Makes sense.
And safety.
Well, they claim engineered for safety, but the context also reminds us FSD is still under NHTSA investigation. So regulatory eyes are still very much on its real-world safety.
Okay. And one more detail. Something about lighting. RGB lighting.
Oh, yeah, the ambient lighting for Model S and X. Tesla says it boosts driver engagement. A notebook check report in the sources suggested maybe better visibility.
Oh, yeah.
But the context pointed out there are no peer-reviewed studies backing those claims, and critics worry it could actually be distraction, which kind of loops back to those NHTSA safety concerns.
Right. So even small features can raise bigger questions about safety and proof.
It seems like it.
Yeah.
Promising tech, but lots of real-world stuff still being worked out based on the context.
Definitely. Okay, let's shift to an AI story that maybe feels a bit more personal. It's closer to home. Matthew shared something about his smart bed.
Ah, yes, this one. It's kind of a perfect, maybe slightly unnerving illustration of relying on connected tech.
What happened exactly?
Basically, he was stuck in a cold bed because the 8-Sleep app, the thing that controls the bed's temperature, it was broken, down, not working.
Oh, no. And he couldn't just adjust it manually.
That was the key detail. He had the Pod 3 model, and unlike the newer Pod 4, apparently it had no physical controls. No buttons, no dials, nothing.
Wow. So totally reliant on the app working.
Exactly. And it just highlights that dependency, right? What happens when the smart system fails. The source context actually had a startling statistic on this.
Yeah?
A 2023 study in the Journal of Ambient Intelligence and Smart Environments found that 68%, almost 7 out of 10 smart device users, had experienced an app-related outage in the past year.
68%. That's way higher than I would have guessed. Lots of people dealing with bricked tech.
It seems so. And is this lack of manual backup common?
Is it?
Well, a 2024 report in the IE Internet of Things journal, also in the context, noted about 15% of IoT devices don't have manual overrides. It's a definite design vulnerability.
So if the internet goes down or the app crashes, you're just stuck.
Pretty much. For basic functions sometimes. And Theo's description, he called the feeling dystopian.
Yeah, I saw that.
And that word, it clicks, right? It taps into that anxiety about automation, about control being somewhere else.
Yeah.
In software. The context mentioned the smart home market is booming, projected $141 billion by 2026.
Huge growth.
So stories like this, they feel a bit like Black Mirror sometimes, and they raise real questions about control, dependency, vulnerability. The convenience is great until it isn't, especially if there's no backup plan.
Yeah.
What do you think when you hear that? Does it make you look at your own smart devices differently?
It absolutely does. You start thinking about, okay, what can I control if the Wi-Fi goes out? That's a good point. Okay, let's transition now. From tech troubles to the world of markets. Geopolitics, too. The sources showed some surprising moves, especially with oil.
Yeah, the Kobisi letter, pointed out something really counterintuitive.
What was that?
Well, you had reports mentioned in the sources about some big Iranian oil and gas facilities being shut down, maybe destroyed.
Okay, normally that would spike prices, right? Supply disruption.
You'd think. But oil prices actually erased their gains and went into the red.
Huh. So the Post asked, what does the market know? What's the thinking there?
The context suggests the market might be looking past the immediate event, maybe anticipating other suppliers stepping up, or maybe expecting strategic petroleum reserve releases.
Like governments intervening.
Exactly. The source cited a 2022 U.S. Treasury analysis. Remember that 180 million barrel SPR release. It apparently lowered gas prices by up to 40 cents a gallon. So the market might be pricing in that kind of possibility again.
Okay, that makes sense. And the geopolitical context around the strikes on Iran.
Also critical. Sources said these were Israeli strikes June 14th, targeting energy infrastructure. That's seen as a shift in tactics.
Right.
However, a really crucial detail from Bloomberg data in the source context. The Strait of Hormuz is still open, operational.
And that's the big choke point for oil transport.
handles about 26% of global oil trade. So long as that's open, the immediate fear of a massive global supply shock is way down.
So facilities hit, but oil can still get out.
Pretty much. The context also floated ideas like maybe it's insider knowledge or speculative trading. There was a 2023 Journal of Financial Economics study mentioned.
Yeah.
It suggested oil futures often discount geopolitical risks, like 20–30% below the media hype level. So the market reaction is complex. It's looking at responses, infrastructure, not just the headline.
It's rarely just simple cause and effect, is it? Okay, speaking of markets, another big number story. Michael Saylor at Saylor posted about Strategy's Bitcoin buying.
Yes, strategy and Bitcoin. The scale is just, wow. As of June 15th, the sources say they hold 592,100 Bitcoin, acquired for about $41.8 billion total, average price, around $70,666 per coin.
That's a lot of Bitcoin. And they just got more.
They did. Another 10,100 BTC, paid about $1.05 billion for that batch at roughly $104,000 per Bitcoin.
So they're buying even at these higher prices.
Aggressively. The context highlighted they've ramped up their holdings by over 2,600% since they first started buying.
2,600% increase in holdings. How does that compare to Bitcoin's price rise itself?
That's the fascinating bit from the context. Bitcoin's price, according to investing.com UK data, went up maybe 860% to its all-time high. Strategy's accumulation rate is way faster than the price appreciation over that time.
So they're scaling in much faster than the price is climbing. Shows real conviction.
Deep conviction, yeah. It's a very deliberate corporate strategy in action. And the sources brought in a potential geopolitical angle here, too.
No. What was that?
Well, the context mentioned recent shifts, like talk of a potential U.S. executive order in 2025,
Right.
reported by CNBC, exploring a strategic Bitcoin reserve for the country.
A U.S. strategic reserve. Okay, that would be huge.
It would signal a massive shift, yeah. And that kind of potential government interest could definitely encourage more corporate adoption, maybe quiet some of the skepticism.
Interesting how the corporate strategy might align with or even anticipate government moves. Okay, let's try and connect a few threads now. Tech investment, government spending, national finances. Your sources had a post from @Unusual Whales that did just that right. OpenAI's DoD contract and the U.S. debt.
Yeah, this juxtaposition was pretty stark. The sources reported OpenAI landed a $200 million contract with the U.S. Department of Defense for AI tools.
Okay, significant investment in AI for defense.
But it was presented right alongside the latest U.S. national debt figures. The image in the source showed the debt hitting $36.985 trillion, basically $37 trillion.
And broken down per person?
Roughly $108,000 per citizen, or, maybe more pointedly, $323,000 per taxpayer.
Wow, and the debt's still climbing fast.
Very fast. The source noted it's up by about $570 billion just since January 2025. That's based on Treasury data.
$570 billion in, what, 5 or 6 months? And the cost to service that debt.
Also soaring. The context pointed out interest payments jumped 28% in 2024, hitting $1.1 trillion. That's now more than defense spending itself.
More than defense spending. Just on interest.
Yeah. So the source implicitly asks this big question. How do we balance investing heavily in things like AI, even vital defense AI, when the national debt and the cost of carrying that debt are skyrocketing?
Especially with projections looking worse.
Right. The CBO projects the debt-to-GDP ratio could hit 166% by 2054 if things continue. So every spending choice, even important ones, has this massive fiscal context hanging over it.
It really forces you to think about those long-term trade-offs. Okay, let's pivot completely now. Let's talk sports and science, some different kinds of buzz from the sources.
All right, switching gears. At NBA gave us a moment from the NBA Finals.
A specific player stood out.
Yeah, focus was on Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, SGA. Game 4 heroics. Dropped 15 points in the last 5 minutes, tied the series 2-2.
Clutch performance.
Definitely. And the context backed it up. ESPN data showed him leading the league in scoring this season, 32.7 points per game. So it fits his performance level.
And who's he up against? Another young star.
Yeah, Tyrese Halliburton. He led the Pacers to their first finals in 25 years. That's a big deal, noted in the context.
So 2 young stars leading their teams.
Exactly. NBA.com, in the source, highlighted how rare and exciting that is for a finals matchup, usually dominated by veterans. You saw that energy like the Thunder's big run in Game 2. It feels like a bit of a changing of the guard.
It sounds like a great series to watch. Okay, from the court to the cosmos. NASA shared something pretty amazing.
This one takes us way out there. An image of a star cluster in the 30 Doradus Nebula. It's about 8,000 light years away. Really beautiful. But the key was about the brightest object in that cluster.
What was the story there?
For a long time, scientists thought it was one single, absolutely enormous star,
Yeah.
maybe 200, 300 times the mass of our sun. Just huge.
Okay. But it wasn't.
Nope. Hubble telescope data, referenced in the context citing older astrophysical journal studies, revealed it's actually two separate stars,
Hmm.
really close together, orbiting each other. A binary system.
Two stars instead of one giant one. Why is that significant scientifically?
Well, it fits with newer thinking. A 2023 Nature Astronomy study, also in the context, suggests that maybe up to 70% of the really massive stars, these O-type stars, might actually be binaries.
70%. Wow.
Yeah, so finding this supports that idea, and it makes astrophysicists rethink how these giants form and evolve. The nebula itself is this chaotic star-forming region. Looks a bit like the pillars of creation. And newer Webb telescope data mentioned in the sources shows infrared light, suggesting lots of cosmic recycling happening there too.
So even what we thought we knew about the biggest stars is changing.
Constantly being refined by better tech, better data, finding complexity where we thought there was simplicity. It's pretty cool.
Absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
Okay, let's bring it back to Earth, the digital Earth anyway. Online business, culture. The sources included a post from @Imroy about a marketing team at Cluely.
Yeah, this looked like, based on the video and the source, basically an introduction to their marketing team, showcasing the people involved.
And what kind of skills were highlighted?
It was a real mix. You had mentions of team members with high Twitch viewership, big social media followings, alongside more traditional roles like CMO.
So a blend of influencer-type skills and business leadership.
Exactly. It reflects what seems crucial in digital marketing now, that combination of being tech-savvy, being able to build an audience directly, and having that business strategy background.
The lines are blurring.
Definitely. And the comments on the post, like from Alexander Botez, show there's real interest in seeing these kinds of diverse, high-achieving teams in the tech startup scene. It suggests the definition of valuable marketing skills is broadening fast. Digital influence is right up there with strategic planning.
Makes sense. Okay, now we need to touch on a couple of posts from the sources that were politically charged. And it's really important we state this clearly. On the deep dive, our job is just to report impartially on what's in the source material. We don't take sides, we don't endorse viewpoints, we're just relaying the content.
Absolutely. Just the facts from the sources presented neutrally. So first up, there was that post from @Elon Musk reacting to an opinion piece.
Right. What was the substance of that, according to the sources?
The source indicated Musk posted something that seemed to mock a Toronto Star opinion piece by Mark Buldutch. The article apparently included a line that some found controversial, suggesting fathers are less important than mothers on Father's Day.
Okay, and there was a community note?
Yeah, the context mentioned a community note added to Musk's post, which kind of humorously pointed out that, well, Mother's Day exists and is already recognized.
How did the source frame this interaction more broadly?
It put it in the context of the ongoing cultural discussion of, like, gender roles, parental importance. It cited a 2021 Journal of Family Issues study showing father involvement in raising kids is up like 65% since the 60s, which pushes back against any idea of a diminished role.
Okay.
The source also noted Musk's tendency, mentioned in Isaacson's biography, to mix this kind of commentary with posts about his other work, like Starship tests.
Understood. Thanks for laying that out neutrally based on the source.
Yeah.
Okay, final politically related point. Again, just reporting impartially. This is from @BennyJohnson about Donald Trump's approval rating.
Right. And again, just relaying the source content, no endorsement. Benny Johnson's post, as described in the source, used a video montage, fighter jets, rockets.
Okay.
And the visual metaphor was clearly meant to suggest Trump's approval rating was soaring.
But the source context had actual polling data.
It did. The context included recent poll data, specifically from Nate Silver's Silver Bulletin as of June 16th, showing strong approval at 27.1%, which represented a decline. So, the imagery in the post contrasted with the polling data provided in the context.
A clear difference between the portrayal and the data presented. Was there any other relevant news mentioned alongside this?
Yes, the source context noted this post came out around the same time as news broke, reported by AP, that Trump had apparently rejected an Israeli plan to assassinate Iran's supreme leader.
Ah, okay. A major foreign policy decision point.
Exactly. And those kinds of decisions can, of course, influence public opinion and ratings. The source also briefly identified Benny Johnson as a conservative commentator, noting the portrayal fit that role, but didn't offer any judgment on it.
Okay. Thank you for navigating those carefully and sticking just to the source information. So, wow, that was quite a journey through today's sources. AI advances and glitches, market puzzles, deep space discoveries, online culture, political snapshots.
It really covers a lot of ground. But when you dive into these different pieces, you start to see the connections, right? Tech reliance links to market volatility, which links to the narratives playing out culturally and politically.
It definitely builds a much richer picture than just sticking to one lane. It gives you context. So, as we wrap up, here's maybe something to chew on. Given how fast AI is weaving into everything, our beds, our defense, and you see these surprising market jolts, plus the way information and narratives shift online, how do you, listening to this, navigate a world where things like control, value, even basic facts feel like they're constantly shifting, maybe even getting away from us sometimes?
That's definitely a thought to ponder based on everything we've seen in the sources today.
Indeed. Well, thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the material you shared.
Always good to explore it all with you.
We'll be back soon with another deep dive.